there, welcome to the Teeny Tinkers channel. I make ball jointed doll and craft related content. Today's video is another episode of Interview with the Artist, a series where I interview various BJD artists about art, sculpting, pre-orders, all that good stuff. Today's artist is Anissa, the talented mind behind Digidolls. Hi there, thanks for chatting with me today.
All right, thanks for interviewing me.
So can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your dolls?
A little bit about myself. I suppose I am a 3D modeler and artist. Currently, I actually work professionally in the toys and games industry at Goliath. And thanks. And Digidolls really helped jumpstart my career. Originally, let's see, I have Ponta right here. She's my first doll that I will never sell. I usually tend to sell a lot of my personal collection, but Digidolls actually started up as a college project because at my school they had a 3D design track or whatever, and before you graduate you have to do this thing called a capstone, and a capstone's your final major project that's kind of supposed to encompass everything that you learned at the school. So I was well, I really like 3D modeling and design and digital fabrication, and I also really like toys, so I'm gonna make a doll. And she was the accumulation of my project. And then just because of Digidolls, I was able to just get a lot of opportunities that I don't think I would have without the internet presence. So.
That's very cool. She's so cute too. I would never sell her also.
Let's see, I will keep her with me then. She'll be in the frame.
So you've made a bunch of really adorable dolls, including the one you're holding now. So probably an easy question maybe, but who's your favorite?
I guess I'll say Ponta because she's the most finished, and I was able to get her pro-casted. And then I suppose my second right now, let's see, I have my Unitar dolls here. Got this girl. She is naked because a lot of my personal dolls, I tend to use them to help with making all the other dolls. So she is she's my second favorite, mostly because I've just never done this type of articulation, and she is the second doll that I've artist casted, and I feel I'm pretty proud of her because I was able to see my growth as a resin caster. She's definitely very different, and I had a way easier time casting her because of all the mistakes that I learned from my first run of Zodiac dolls.
So you mentioned that you kind of went to school for sculpting, but what got you into toy making and sculpting in 3D, even maybe before you went to school for it? Or was this seems like a cool thing to learn?
As a kid, I was always obsessed with dolls. I think I discovered BJDs when I was in middle school, from Tumblr, Deviant or something like that, and I was totally obsessed, and I was I want to have this, but I am a child, so therefore I am too poor to afford dolls, so I shall learn how to sculpt a doll. So I've technically been sculpting since I was in middle school, just always making my own versions of dolls and then tossing them away and making another one, until school introduced me to 3D modeling, which I didn't really I've seen it around, heard of it, but I didn't really know what it was until I got to school, because originally I wanted to be a concept artist literally everybody else who wants to go to school for art, and then I totally fell in love with 3D and digital fabrication and 3D printing and all that jazz. So yeah.
What's your program of choice?
My program of choice currently is ZBrush. I'm kind of what they consider a ZBrush cowboy because ZBrush is my main. But in the past and currently, I use Blender as well for hard surface modeling and box modeling and stuff. So if you want to make a car, go into Blender and stuff like that. If you want to make a human, go into ZBrush. And then I also used to use Maya, which is a 3D modeling program primarily used for the animation industry and kind of for games, but I've kind of retired that program because in my professional sculpting life, we literally don't use Maya, we just use Blender. So.
Interesting. So I've also seen on your Instagram that you cast your own dolls, or you have. How did you even get started with that? Like, what's step one, I guess?
Step one, oh man. Sorry, I'm like trying to think because resin casting is such a labor-intensive process, and when it comes to resin casting your own dolls, there is really no information related to making dolls specifically. You really have to understand the craft first, and then you apply the base knowledge to whatever type of fabrication you're doing. So how I got into it was basically just a crap ton of research, like researching every single thing, like what type of environment should I resin cast in, how do you resin cast hollow objects, what's a 1-part mold versus a 2-part mold versus a 3-part mold, which you can make it into as many parts as you want to, but it just gets overly complicated. But just intensively researching the basics. And another thing that helped me was looking at other artists' molds, so you can understand the design process of making a mold, because it's kind of technical. You want to make molds to where the air will release on its own, and you want to make molds that don't have a lot of like air trappage, so you can't actually put a lot of detail into molds because that's how bubbles get trapped and all the fine details and stuff. And what helped me with that, I would go on Instagram, I would be like, who resin cast their own dolls? And I would just scroll and look for any work in progress. So like Batchix was one of them. She's a great artist and she resin casts her own dolls. And if you just keep scrolling, you will find like little pictures or tidbits of information how she constructed it. Another one was Haru Casting. If you go on his Twitter, he has all of like the pictures of like how he does it. So basically just trying to copy pictures and like people, how they orientate their dolls inside molds and all that jazz to kind of get some sort of understanding of how to resin cast a doll. But yeah, it was really just that, like, it's kind of like you have these bones, but they have little tiny bits of meat on it, and you kind of just gotta pick off as much as you can to figure it out.
She's super scrappy.
Yeah, basically.
So where do you get the inspiration for your personal dolls?
I'd say my inspiration doesn't really come from other doll artists. I don't really think I get inspired by like anybody who makes dolls other than I think his name is like Gintaro Araki. He's the guy who made Yanoa's. He really got me into BJDs in the first place. But other than that, a lot of it just comes from like anime. A lot of it comes from basically however I'm feeling, so I really like fantasy stuff. So really all I do is make fantasy things because it makes me feel happy. What else do I get inspired by? I don't know, just like media that I consume that I see on social media or something like that. Like I'm like, oh, this girl's really cute. And I'm sorry if you hear my cat in the background.
It's okay, I love cats.
Honestly, it's mostly just like, how do I feel? What do I want to make? I think Snake Girls are really cool because I just consumed an anime about monster girls. So yeah, that's it. Not a lot of depth goes into them. It's just like, how am I feeling? I'm gonna make that.
That sounds fun. Let's try that now.
Yeah.
While you were making your dolls or any of your sculpting projects, what are some like maybe snags or issues you ran into along the way, and how do you fix them?
Snags and issues. I think. Oh Lord, actually, hold on. Give me a second. Look, my cat is very. He's very needy. So.
Yeah, I have cats like that too.
My main issues usually just come from if I'm designing a new body, like the jointing. How will I make it work? It's really hard to troubleshoot that because of the difference in materials. When you 3D print something, the resin is very different from production grade resin, so like polyurethane and stuff like that. Polyurethane, depending, is way lighter than like 3D printing resin. So that can give me some jointing issues just based off of like weight distribution. And I often find that like if sometimes when I translate dolls over into their final resin casted form, I'll just get jointing issues simply because like things are now too smooth. So things slip, the joints don't have enough grip, or sometimes you will get like the tolerance will change, and tolerance is basically like the space you have between your joints and your sockets. And if the tolerance changes, then you'll get more jointing problems like the joints not having enough grip, because if things shrink improperly, then you'll have too much space and then you have wobbly joints. So dealing with a lot of like shrinking, like translating between materials is hard. Definitely hard, and it makes a lot of like mechanical things that you want to work not work properly or as good as they used to be in their prototype form.
Super interesting. So yeah, it just sounds like a lot of like iterating on what you've done, and obviously a ton of knowledge. Just a warehouse of knowledge.
I feel like I don't even, sometimes when I think about what I do, I don't think I'm too knowledgeable. I just think I'm very obsessed about things. So like if I get very hyper focused on what I make, and because of that I do deep dives, and then I'm just like, well, now it's easy, it's not that hard, you just have to be completely obsessed and only think about it 24/7. My child, he's come.
The baby.
Mwah. You gotta go mind your business, Casper.
Your I don't want to give it. They're not centaurs.
I call them just unitars, but I also call them centaurs. I make a lot of fur-related content. I don't know, just.
So that's your second pre-order?
I believe they're my third. I made the very first hand-casted dolls I did were they were basically like, their body types were a smaller version of Ponta, except it was like a rabbit and a cat and a mouse. Those were my second dolls that I ever made. And the Unitars are my third dolls. I changed around the style because I think I just like ended up liking anime dolls a lot more. And this was me trying to figure out unicorn or like pony jointing, which is very hard.
I'm sure.
And I don't know, but hopefully I will just keep making more of these in the same style, and they'll all have like the same like interchangeable heads and all that jazz. The next one in the line is I'm making a snake girl, and I'm still trying to decide like how I want to design her, but she's in the works.
It's so cool. I don't think I've seen mermaid BJDs. I don't know that I've seen a snake girl, so that's really exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing that.
There is one artist that makes a snake girl, but I can't remember her off the top of my head.
It's not your first rodeo then. What do you think is the most difficult thing about running a pre-order?
I think with anything, it's managing people. Like you get 30 orders in at once, and if you are like packaging up everything and doing everything yourself, you're not perfect, you're gonna make mistakes, so you ship out one mistake, and then you get like one person being like, hey, this happened, then another person being like, hey, this happened. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like times things just like slip out of your control, and you literally don't even know how it happened. Like recently when I shipped out the Unitar pre-orders, I accidentally shipped one girl like a doll that was not hers, and I don't know how I put the same postage label on two different packages. But luckily she was a friend of mine, so she's like, I'll just ship it back to you, and I got that taken care of. But like just like random stuff like that happens, and managing your own mistakes and managing like 30 people at the same time is very, very overwhelming.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you're working on a snake girl now. Are you still in like the concept, or are you like drawing it up, or what stage are you in with her?
For me right now, it's like I'm going back and forth between how I want her to look and this 3D model like block out I have of her, because most of her, since my zodiac line is supposed to be interchangeable parts, so you should be able to take like her top body off and switch it with a snake. So all of this has already been built, but it's like finding a new face design and figuring out how I want to do the snake joints. And with that, it's just really a lot of back and forth. Like, does this work? And I'll do something in 2D. I'm like, does this work? And then I do it in 3D. I'm like, it doesn't work, because sometimes 2D designs do not translate over into 3D. So that's where I'm at right now. And I'm also just thinking of actually just completely changing her body type to being more mature and curvy to fit, those anime waifu goals and dreams.
Awesome. You use the word block out. I know you have a video on, you have a YouTube channel, I believe. Yes. And I've seen a video where you're blocking out a doll. Yes? Can you explain what blocking out is for anybody who's not sure or new to 3D modeling?
So a block out, even if you're sculpting traditionally or sculpting digitally, it's basically like the rough sketch of what you're sculpting. So you'll use very like simple primitive forms. I think they're called primary forms when you're sculpting. So it's like huge circles that represent like the head and like cylinders for the arms and stuff like that. And it's a great way to figure out the proportion and figure out the overall shape and design before you get into your secondary and primary forms. And secondary forms is like now you're adding like a nose shape to your spearhead, and now you're adding like indents for the eye holes and all that jazz. And then tertiary forms of stuff like I'm adding eyelashes and creases or whatever to the face. So
very cool.
Yeah.
If anybody here is interested in learning about 3D sculpting, Digidolls videos are actually a really great resource, and I use them myself when I was working on my dolls, so definitely check them out. I'll link them below, of course. So you're working on your Snake Girl. You just did a pre-order for your unitards. We know what is happening and what's in the works, but if everybody wants to kind of keep up with what you're doing, where should they go?
They should go to @Digi_dolls on Instagram. That's where I update the most. And then I do have a website that's Digi-Dolls.com. And that's where I post up like the actual pre-order sales. It's really just a web shop. There's no other information on there. But yeah, that's where you can find me and my stuff.
So everybody head on over to the Instagram, check out the website, and you can keep up with Anissa and her amazing dolls. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with me today. I loved getting to know you and your dolls better.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. It was definitely a pleasure.
If you're already subscribed to my channel, thank you so much for subscribing. If you're new here, I hope you like the content and will consider subscribing. As always, have a fantastic day. Bye!
Bye!